Hello, it's Senator Ben Cardin once again on Facebook Live, where we bring in experts in a particular subject that is relevant to the work we're doing in the United States Congress to have a discussion as to how we can advance certain issues. So today I am so pleased that we have two real giant figures in the rights for the Equal Rights Amendment and equal rights for women. So we're going to talk about the ERA. We're going to talk about its history. We're going to talk about its presence, and we're going to talk about what we hope will be its near future. And that is, long last, getting the Equal Rights Amendment in the United States Constitution. That's our objective. I know most Americans think that's already the case, but that's not. And we're going to talk about the history, but we're also going to talk about how we can get this to the finish line. So let me introduce my two guests. Carol Jenkins is the president and CEO of the ERA Coalition and the Fund for Women Equality. She is known by all of us in the advocacy community for equal rights for women. She has been just a stalwart in her efforts to get the Equal Rights Amendment enacted. And Alyssa Milano, who is an activist, an author, an actor, part of the ERA Coalition, board member, and so many other things she does. So we have two people who really understand not only the history of the Equal Rights Amendment, but the consequences of where we are and the consequences of the importance to enshrine this in the Constitution of the United States. So, Carol, let me start with you. How did you get involved in this? How did this come about?
Well, an invitation to join the board of a brand new organization getting started 8 years ago, when not very many people at all at that point were, had the Equal Rights Amendment, at topmost in their mind. So I've been here for 8 years, and we've gone from a few coalition members to over 210 organizations across the country. And I who all understand that we are in this together, and the Equal Rights Amendment is our pathway to equality in this country for so many things. I, came to this from the civil rights movement, which my family has participated in since the 60s, where I was born and spent the first years of my life a rural farm in Lowndes County, Alabama. That was the third stopover from the historic march from Selma to Montgomery, the farm we still have in our family. An uncle of mine was a very savvy businessman in Birmingham, Alabama, and he owned the motel that was the headquarters for Martin Luther King during the desegregation effort in Birmingham. And in fact, he was the one who bailed Martin Luther King out of jail, as well as hundreds of students who had been arrested when President Kennedy said, please, we're afraid of the consequences. Please remove him from jail. And of course, my cousins who got beaten in the head because they just wanted a cup of coffee sitting at a lunch counter in so many southern places. And I just want to say one more thing, and that is that I spent a huge part of my work life as a reporter and had the honor of covering Nelson Mandela when he was released from prison in South Africa after 27 years, and was standing outside of his tiny house in Soweto, his very first day of freedom. And the look on his face that morning is the thing that has just inspired me through
Mhm.
all of this ERA work. That moment of knowing that it is possible to make change.
Well, thanks for sharing that. I, I've had the opportunity to visit many places in the world on behalf of the Helsinki Commission, on behalf of human rights. And it is always very emotional when you're dealing with people who have been denied rights. And you recognize that it's been your voice that has brought their cause to the international arena. And we actually can make progress and we're affecting their lives. They may not all know our names, but what you're doing clearly has had a major impact on the lives of so many people. Eliza, tell me how you got involved in this.
Well, I mean, I remember my mom talking about the ERA when I was a little girl, probably 8 or 9 years old when the deadline was about to pass, and I remember how important it was to her and how angry and hurt she was that our governments wouldn't do, just a very simple thing and say that she and I mattered as much as men do. And it stuck with me my whole life. And then when Me Too happened, I had the incredible opportunity to get more involved in the mechanics, really, of making the ERA part of our Constitution. And I've been so honored to do so, and I won't stop until that happens. And Senator, thank you so much for all of your work that you've done on behalf of the Equal Rights Amendment. And of course, my co-conspirator, Carol Jenkins, you're one of my heroes. Thank you both for having me today.
So let's talk about this for one moment, because one of the problems that we have is that most Americans believe the Equal Rights Amendment is in the Constitution of the United States. And for good reason, because the overwhelming majority of constitutions for democratic states have an Equal Right Amendment in it. And a lot of our state constitutions, including Maryland, has an Equal Rights Amendment in their state constitution. So one of the hurdles we have is to get people to understand that there is no protection. I frequently quote the late Justice Scalia, who famously said there's nothing in the Constitution that requires discrimination based upon gender, but there's nothing in the Constitution that protects against discrimination based upon gender. So we have this issue that remains today. How do we correct it? And the answer has been through a constitutional amendment. So Carol, just walk us through the current status, where we are, and from a legal point of view, and then we'll talk about the need for constitutional protection.
Thank you, Senator. And let me add to Alyssa's thanks to you for what you are doing in the Senate. We are so appreciative of the removal of the time limit bill that you've worked so assiduously on for so many years. And we are all going to get this done. We feel that we're right here with you, that it's going to happen. I think part of the problem is that we've been swimming in this sea of inequality for so long that we don't really even know that it's happening. Most women, and men believe, of course, a democracy as advanced as the United States, would have in its constitution protections for, women and men, and we don't. And it's by design. It was not an accident that women were left out of the Constitution, as were the enslaved and the formerly enslaved. And so we've accepted this as the norm. And what we don't understand is that all of the work that we do in trying to enhance diversity and garner equal pay and provide protections for sexual assaults and all of that, it's all repair work. Because we haven't gone to the source of the sexism in our country, and that source is built in to the Constitution. And therefore, in order to make any difference whatsoever, we've got to fix that. The Constitution has been fixed 27 times before. It can be fixed the 28th time. We've met all of the constitutional requirements, which are Congress passage, and that happened in the 70s. And 38 states ratifying. We are there. And on January 27th of 2022, we are declaring that and announcing it so that, people will understand that we have done all of the work. We've got an arbitrary and an invalid time limit that was set on the ERA. You are working to lift it. Congress put it there. Congress can remove it. And that should happen.
And I would just add that
Sure.
we are seeking to protect and promote just inherent human dignity that every person is worth, regardless of sex, gender, or orientation. And the ERA reflects and promotes this value by just guaranteeing equal treatment under the law. And the 14th Amendment, it's not enough. Only an ERA would provide for gender equity and offer just, this overriding guarantee of equal protection for women.
Well, thanks for bringing that up, because I think a lot of times it's asked, do we really need the protection in the Constitution? So let's be clear. The way to amend the Constitution, Congress initiated a constitutional change in the 1970s. They put a time limit on it. They have the right to do that. They also have the right to change the time limit. Congress changed the time limit in the 1970s, and Congress can change it again. So we know that. We also know that there is no time limit to the ratification of a constitutional amendment. The most recent amendment took 200 years, which is affecting the pay of members of Congress, was ratified literally over a couple hundred years. So there is no time limit. What is required is 38 states. And we have 38 states, don't we, Carol?
We do. We indeed have 38 states. The last three states to ratify, Nevada, Illinois, and Virginia. Virginia on January 27th of 2020. And we were all actually in Virginia getting ready to celebrate that ratification when the alerts on our phones went off and said, hold on a second, there's a memo that's just been put into the Office of Legal Counsel that says everything is over, the ERA is dead and gone. And that is one of the things that we have been fighting ever since then. We believe that the Office of Legal Counsel needs to scrap the memo. The archivist needs to publish the amendment onto the Constitution, and the people of this country need to move on to equality.
Liza, the Office of Legal Counsel has been known to issue political opinions. So I'm not going to cast any aspersions on the opinion that was offered under the Trump administration, but it's an opinion. And of course, there's now a new administration, and we know that President Biden strongly understands the importance of the Equal Rights Amendment. We also understand there have been lawsuits filed by the states that most recently ratified the Equal Rights Amendment to have the archivist declare that the Equal Rights Amendment is now part of the Constitution. So just give me your take as to the importance of the Office of Legal Counsel's memorandum opinion under the Trump administration and where we are in regards to what should be the policy of this country.
Well, I think what we're seeing really is the continuation of the subjugation of women. Progress can be too easily rolled back, and laws can be repealed, and judicial attitudes can shift. Supreme Court justices can change hands with different political ideology. And this is more reason of why we need the ERA in the Constitution. It's to ensure that the rights of American women and girls and transgender people, non-binary people will not be diminished by any Congress or political trend, but instead be preserved as basic rights guaranteed by our founding document.
Yeah, and we have at the coalition, the minute that Christopher Schrader was confirmed for the Office of Legal Counsel, sent AG Garland a request that the Trump administration, the Barr DOJ memo be scrapped, and that the archivist publish. Last night I spent some time with the Solicitor General of Virginia, who is writing the brief for the AG's case against the archivist. You know, in that curious world, the DOJ is defending him as opposed to the women of America. But at any rate, what Michelle Kalin, who was the first woman Solicitor General of Virginia, said last night is that the briefs are due in January and February, and they expect some sort of decision on that case, probably not until July or August, and that's according to the Solicitor General. So that we, have a lot of work to do, though, before that. We are calling on President Biden to step forward. We need to hear his voice. We cannot let this memo ruin the chances of the Equal Rights Amendment becoming in fact a real thing. So we need to hear from him. We know that both he and Vice President Harris were fervent supporters of the Equal Rights Amendment, and some of the the statements that they've issued have been positive, but we have not risen to the top of anyone's agenda yet, and we really need to be there. The time is running out, so we desperately need President Biden to say something. Support the Equal Rights Amendment, support the women of America, because every single day they are being told that they don't matter. And when you have a 50-year constitutional right possibly being stripped away from you, you begin to understand how fragile, our participation in this democracy is.
And Senator, it just shouldn't be this hard.
No. Alyssa, let me just point out that President Biden, his statement is a great statement when he said, as when the House passed the extension of the time limit for the Equal Rights Amendment, he said it's long past time we passed the ERA to enshrine the principles of gender equality in our Constitution, because no one's right should be denied on account of sex. So we know that President Biden's in the right place. It is, I agree with Carol, it's time, well past time for the Biden administration to make it clear that the politicized opinion of counsel under the Trump administration should be disavowed and taken back.
Hear, hear.
That we need to do that. But let me make a suggestion of a very clear way that we could help this process. Why don't we just pass SJ Res 1? Wouldn't that help?
Sounds good to me.
So
Why
SJ,
don't we?
go ahead.
Senator, would you mind just explaining to our viewers right now what that resolution would state?
Sure. This is a resolution that I filed. It's bipartisan. Senator Murkowski, a Republican from Alaska, is my co-sponsor on this. The comparable resolution has passed the House of Representatives. It passed on March 17th of this year, and it simply removes the time limit on the ratification of the original resolution that was passed by Congress in the 1970s, so that when the extended time limit passed, we had 35 states that had ratified the Constitution, 3 short of what is needed. We now have 38 states that have ratified the exact number that's needed. So if Congress can establish a time limit, they can extend it or eliminate the time limit. This resolution makes it clear it's the intent of Congress that the 38 states that have ratified the Constitution, in fact, have completed the process, and the ERA should become part of the Constitution. That's the simplest way, I think, to describe this resolution. And clearly, Carol Jenkins' group has been out there in front helping us to mobilize the support for this. We can use a few more co-sponsors in the Senate. We need the votes to pass it. I've talked to Senator Schumer. I'm hopeful that we're going to get a vote on this in this Congress. So Carol, I know this has been a priority of your group.
Yes, absolutely. And we thank you so much, for your, and Senator Murkowski, we should say, and we also have Senator Collins who has signed on, and we know that the Democratic caucus supports it as well. We've only announced 5 so far. I think you're working on what we as activists refer to as the Noah's Ark principle. You won't add more Democrats until more Republicans are on. So I'm wondering how that is going along. I mean, I know that at some point we will have to announce the declared sponsors. Do you see any development in when that will take place?
Well, make no mistake about it, the overwhelming number of Democratic senators want to co-sponsor and strongly support the Equal Rights Amendment. But we do not believe we should politicize this on a partisan basis. Human rights, women's rights are human rights. Secretary Clinton famously quoted that several years ago. I've been involved in so many of the international groups involving human rights, and clearly women's rights are part of our major agenda item. We've always been able to do this on a nonpartisan, bipartisan path. And we think that the best way to proceed is bipartisan. And that's why Senator Murkowski has been working very hard. Senator Collins has been working very hard to get additional Republican co-sponsors. So we have a list of Republican senators that we think will support an Equal Rights Amendment. And we are hopeful that we'll be able to get more co-sponsors. And believe me, we have no shortages of Democratic co-sponsors. There are a lot that would like to be part of to show their support by their co-sponsorship. So we're going to continue to reach out to try to keep this as nonpartisan, bipartisan as possible, because we really want to get to the finish line on this, and we think that's the best way to get there.
We should also add that we're the only industrialized nation that doesn't have an equal rights amendment or a women's protections in their constitution.
You're absolutely right about that. 94% of the Constitution since 1970 that have been adopted by countries include an Equal Rights Amendment. 85% of all UN member countries have a Equal Rights Amendment provision. And let me tell you something, they're not 85% of the United Nations countries that are democratic. So it's we are really falling behind, which leads me, Carol, to the next question. And Alyssa, how do we deal with U.S. leadership? You know, it is said frequently that the United States is the leader in promoting universal values of human rights. But with the United States falling behind on the constitutional protection, how does that impact our ability to be a leader globally on gender equality?
Well, I think it's very hard, in the grassroots level, on the ground. I have had many people ask me, in the international forum, why does America hate its women? Why does it put such barriers in front of them? Why are American women feeling so despondent and unhopeful in this time? Because they are being told everywhere that they simply don't matter. That they have to wait for decisions about, bills. The Violence Against Women Act is being hassled. That's an activist term, by the way. So, yeah, but, having to stretch to do something as essential as, as that, items in the Build Back Better bill that are so essential to women getting back to work and to taking care of their children. So internationally, we do have a reputation of being not supportive of our women. In fact, I just heard that Dennis Mukwege, the doctor who does such incredible work in the Congo with sexually abused women, has written a book and has 3 or 4 pages on the lack of the American Equal Rights Amendment. So even in the Congo, they're looking down on us for what we are doing or not doing for our women.
It's hard to say that we are the leader of the free world when there is above 50% of our population that isn't protected in our founding document. And I think it would send a huge message to the world, but also a huge message to the people who live in this country, the people who continue to abuse their power, the people who continue to discriminate based on sex and gender. And so I think we are long past due. Equality should not take 100 years. And it also should not have a deadline on its validity.
Alyssa, very well said. I agree. Carol?
No, I was just agreeing. Alyssa, as always, is able to put this, plainly. One of the things that I keep thinking about, is that often people say to us, the Equal Rights Amendment is not going to do anything. So, it's just a symbol. Well, my first answer to that is always, okay, I'll take the symbol. If it's not going to do anything, just do it, give it to us. But in fact, it has more than just the statement of you can't be discriminated against. It also has a section that says Congress will have the ability to write the laws to enforce this non-discriminatory statement. So I think that, we need the underpinning. You mentioned, all of the laws that have been, are in existence, already, the 14th Amendment and, the Title VII, Title IX. We all know that those are under challenge. And again, I'll mention the Violence Against Women Act, under challenge, where it is being said front and clear, that women's rights do not matter. So I think that we need to, for instance, use the example of our gymnast, Simone Biles, and her, colleagues who were sexually abused for years, and the FBI and others ignored it because I guess they felt that their stories were not important enough. Well, the Equal Rights Amendment would say, yes, their stories are important, and if you do not listen to them, yeah, there will be recourse, there will be punishment, because generally what we have is that we always say, yes, women should be paid equally to men, but the punishment for not doing it, is not significant enough, or otherwise we would not have this, prevalent, rampant problem. So I think we need to see it as a fundamental constitutional underpinning of all of the other laws that exist. Some people think that, we say the others are, not helpful. We're not saying that at all. We're saying that all of those laws and acts and, whatever, every action needs support, and the Equal Rights Amendment would be the support for that.
Also, I mean, there are very substantial things. This is not just a symbol, although even if it were just a symbol, we wear wedding bands as a symbol of our devotion to our spouses. Symbols can be important, but beyond that, this would prohibit sexual discrimination in the same way we have prohibited discrimination on the basis of race and religion and national origin. Really guaranteeing equal footing for women in the legal system of all 50 states, and ensuring that, I mean, I could go, if you don't mind, I'd just love to go through some of the things that are possible with an ERA. We could ensure that government programs and federal resources benefit men and women equally. It'll give all citizens the opportunity to reach their full potential. Women and men must have equal rights, in my opinion, for a democracy to be able to thrive, especially when we are, you know, expected to contribute to the workforce and the economy. And I think historically, we have just been treated as second-class citizens, you know, including in cases of divorce, child custody, domestic violence, and sexual assault. And I just think that, you know, according to well, women are still not receiving equal pay for equal work, and we know that. Women on average only earn, I think it's 78 cents for every dollar. And passing an ERA obviously will put the full weight of the US Constitution behind all of the employment laws relating to the prevention of gender discrimination in hiring and firing and promotions and benefits. And that goes is especially true for the public sector. So I don't think we can afford not to do this.
So I want to continue this discussion with Alyssa Milano, an activist, an author, an actor, and a real passionate advocate on behalf of equal rights for women. Carol Jenkins, the president and CEO of the Equal Rights Coalition, the Fund for Women Equality, and talk about why this, drill down a little bit more on the importance of including this in the Constitution, the specific requirement of the Equal Rights Amendment. Some argue we have the 14th Amendment, as you've already pointed out, which requires equal protection under the law. We have lots of laws that have been passed by Congress and states that provide certain equality of treatment based upon gender. So we have laws, and we have the 14th Amendment. But enshrining the Equal Rights Amendment in the Constitution takes this to a different level. You've already mentioned this, but I want to just talk about a couple areas that make a real difference. One, it makes it a higher standard in regards to being able to demonstrate whether a law is fair or not based upon gender. So it elevates the standard. And Alyssa, I think you mentioned race. It puts it on the equal par on that type of legislative action. Second, it gives expanded legal recourse in the event of discrimination so that you have an easier path to rectify something that's wrong based upon gender. Without it being in the Constitution, it makes it more challenging to get the recourse you need. And then third, there are gaps today where we don't have laws in place and there are practices that are clearly wrong. This gives us the ability to be able to say, no, you can't do that because of the constitutional protections. So it really does take it to a new level. And that's why, again, as I put a little bit earlier, Justice Scalia saying, okay, you don't have to discriminate, but there's nothing in the Constitution that prevents discrimination. So in each of those areas, you've already mentioned some of these points, but it is absolutely essential for America, for what we believe in as a nation today, that we enshrine these beliefs in our Constitution. And for those who say, well, aren't you setting up standards that no one knows how to work with? Well, we see other constitutions around the world in democratic states, and we see state constitutions that have enshrined the Equal Rights Amendment. So this is not reinventing the wheel. This is something we should have done a long time ago. So,
And
Carol,
also, I think because of the people have been saying the 14th Amendment, the 14th Amendment. I mean, it's really important to remember the 14th Amendment is a whole 5 amendments earlier than our right to vote came, which is the 19th Amendment. So clearly the 14th Amendment was not made to protect women. Otherwise, we would have had the right to vote then. So we need our own protections. We need to face this sexism, the misogyny, the patriarchy head on. And we need to do this not only for our daughters, but also for our sons. It sends such a strong message. And I just, if I may just touch a little bit on, because I hear all the time, Senator, well, who's against this? Who's against giving women equality, constitutional equality? And opponents of the ERA have tried to argue that in practice the ERA would have few positive effects, but that is just simply not true. Just so everybody knows, these are the same tired arguments that anti-equality special interests made in the 1970s and before. They were not true then, and they are not true now. And like you said, we've seen many states enact a version of the ERA in their own laws and constitutions, and none of this has happened on a state level. The government would still be able to draw distinctions based on sex if they meet a strict scrutiny standard. So what that means is if a state has a true need to maintain gender-based distinctions, like for instance, a battered women's shelter to women specifically, the ERA would not affect that. Also, most of the laws that people think of as benefiting women, like Social Security regulations and benefits, WIC benefits, laws requiring child or spousal supports, and so on, are actually already sex neutral.
And for me, the thing that we have to keep in mind is that so many of the things that we've been working on for so many years are truly intractable. Again, because we have not gone to the source of the problem. Alyssa was talking about the discrepancy in pay for Black women at 63 cents and has only improved, by 3 cents for over 30 years. I mean, we are coming out of a pandemic that has affected Black women, women of color, Indigenous women in such extraordinary ways. And I was just looking at some of the reports of people who are finally beginning to go back to work, and because of the new variant and whatever, we're missing almost 100,000 Black women who did not go back, to work. A difference, with other women who are responding, to the new economy, and they can't because they have been so devastated, so beaten down, working in jobs that do not have benefits, that do not, care about who's going to take care of their children. So I think, for us to say that, that we're fine, as some people have said, that women are doing well, women are most of the impoverished, the starving, trying to feed their children, working 3 and 4 jobs in this country. Maternal health. I mean, it's a thing, that we in the coalition will begin to concentrate, on, have always had as a part of our portfolio, Black maternal health. In some places, the rate of Black women dying is 4 times what white women. I think that might be in New Jersey. In a place like Montana, Indigenous women die at 7 times the rate, of white women, because of the lack of care and systemic lack of care and consideration. So, I always say, if you're looking for the source of systemic sexism and racism too, it lies in the Constitution. And until it is fixed, we will always be struggling and wondering, when are we ever going to get to this point of equality? We won't. I think the estimates now are like here, what, 75, 100 years? And around the world, steeper than that it would take to actually achieve gender equality. So we're looking at, a long timeline. We cannot allow our great grandchildren to still be forced with these inequities, when we have the solution right before us, right in our hands, to say, here, you do matter, you do count, and this Equal Rights Amendment is going to make a difference in your life, your daughter's life, and your great grandchildren's lives.
Well, I think you only need to point to the economic disparities in this country to understand that we have a problem in America. We recognize that we are a great nation that really strives for equal rights for all people. We do. That's our objective, and that's embedded in all of our principles. But when you take a look at the economic disparities today, we're not able to pass effective laws to deal with equal pay for equal work. When we take a look at the economic empowerment as far as entrepreneurship is concerned, women are nowhere near representative of the entrepreneurs based upon the numbers in this country. When you look at the pension laws in this country, it's difficult for women with their work years. We look at the cost of childcare and the impact of that on the workplace, paid leave or the absence of paid leave. And then you look at COVID-19. And you see in COVID-19, who was impacted the most? And we know it was women who were impacted the most because of the inability to be able to take care of their children and go to work, and childcare and the type of jobs that they had. They were frontline workers, much more at risk, et cetera, and not paid as well as men. So all those issues really, I think, underscore the importance that we have to have more than just say we're in favor of equal opportunity in this country. And we need to say we embed that in our basic document, the Constitution of the United States. I got a question we like to take questions every once in a while from our Facebook Live audience. We have Carla on Facebook who asks, what can we do in our home states to move this along? Carol, what can they do? Tell them about can use some more sponsors in the Senate.
Yes, exactly. Write your senators. We need more sponsorship. We're up to, we believe, 52. We need 8 more senators that we've been working on in the coalition over the last year or more, so that we would suggest that. And I do want to point out, it's so interesting that when we talk about inequality in America for women, it's not the same in every single state. She's bringing up the states. For instance, if you're looking at a state like West Virginia or Arkansas or Louisiana, they are the states that have the worst conditions, very bad conditions for women in terms of every marker you can think of. If you go to a place like New Hampshire or, whatever, it's not. So all states are not equal in terms of discriminating against women and not providing resources, that they need. So I think examining your state, the employment, records that exist, the Black maternal health records that exist. I think, the Biden administration just introduced a new designation of good birthing hospitals. They actually had to do that to regulate the kind of care or to recognize the kind of care that's being given to women, having babies. Is this a safe place to have a baby? And so now we're measuring the hospitals that way. So I think that we can do that. And one of our coalition members in Arizona got a bunch of pro bono lawyers to go through every statute in the state of Arizona on all of the books to find out what would need to be changed once the ERA is in existence. So that report is 650 pages long. We are beginning to have every single state do that. We want 50 states to examine your statutes. The ERA is coming, and then what will you need to change in your state to adhere to the non-discriminatory clause and demands and laws that could be enacted to fix the problem based on the Equal Rights Amendment. So I think that there is a great deal of work to be done. We, of course, say we have met all the requirements. On January 27th of 2022, we will be celebrating the existence of the ERA. And what we do know is that shortly thereafter, lawsuits will be filed based on the ERA in existence. Again, remember, passage by Congress and 38 states, the only requirements in the Constitution. And so we are working to get rid of, and thank you, Senator Cardin, get rid of the invalid, arbitrary time limit. But until then, there is a tremendous amount of work to be done to get ready for what we call lived equality. So whether or not the paperwork is there, we have to do the work. And that is looking at places and things that we can change, as we go along. And January 27th, 2022 is the kickoff for, that. How do we get our country ready for equality, whether or not, we've resolved the issues of the time limit and of the archivist publishing the amendment onto the Constitution. And once again, President Biden, we need to hear from you. Vice President Harris, we know you support us. We need a statement because the women of America are becoming despondent and beginning to wonder, where support from the very top reaches of power we may get. Are you with us? And how do we move forward to make sure that this happens in the very near future?
And I would also just encourage all of the people watching to use your voices, to tell 3 friends about what you've learned today, but also sign up over at eracoalition.org for our updates, and also follow us on social media. We're on Twitter and Instagram, Facebook, and we will keep you up to date on ways that you can help and ways that we need you to use your voices.
Alyssa Milano is such a good board member.
I can see that. Listen, thanks for mentioning that. Look, we need help. The women of America, all of us need help because this is what our nation is about, equal rights, and we need people to weigh in on this. We need to make sure legislators know this is a priority. It needs to get done. I started by saying that most Americans think it's already been done. We have to make it clear it has not been done and has a consequence, and we need to get it done. So, yes, there are so many areas in this nation where the public, and by the way, the public overwhelmingly supports the Equal Rights Amendment. I think it's 75% believe we should have an Equal Rights Amendment in the Constitution itself. So you can go to any state in this country, and the populace want it to be done because it's right. Let's make it a bigger political issue. And Alyssa, you're absolutely right. Sign up, get involved. There'll be some coordinated efforts, and we'll be glad to share information that can help us get this done.
Right. So on our website, Senator, as Alyssa knows, is the letter that we sent to Attorney General Garland. We have a petition there that you can sign up. One of our partners has worked with us, Daily Kos, and we have over 50,000 signatures asking AG Garland, to lift that memo in the OLC. And of course, there is a way on our website to reach all of the senators to get them to vote for SJ Res 1.
Well, I always like to give a shout out to my hero on women's rights. That's the late Justice Ginsburg.
Mm.
It's interesting. She said if she had her choice to see a change in the Constitution of the United States, she would like to see the Equal Rights Amendment adopted. And I think we all respect her just brilliance in understanding the Constitution and the role the Constitution plays in our society. Uh, it just validates what you all have been saying, that it really is important for America, for our country, for everyone in this country, that we get this done. Alyssa, you've been around the nation. You've seen individuals who have different views about this. Uh, have you heard any arguments that you think we need to rebut? I really don't know of any argument that's really against the Equal Rights Amendment. You've already touched upon those who say it would take away benefits from women, which is just hogwash. But are there other arguments that are out there we need to talk about?
No, I think the important thing for people to understand is it's the same arguments from 1972 that they are still making today. And, when I think about the last sort of 5 years and what women have overcome and stood up to say, right? Listen, like when the Me Too movement came to national attention, none of the problems that it highlighted were new, right? And these millions and millions of people, and it was largely women, spoke about this tremendous gender-based discrimination and harassment and violence. And it didn't start in 2017, but what happened then was that we all collectively said that we were done tolerating it and that we would stand together against it. And it is my opinion, it is the opinion of so many and so many incredible activists that I am standing on the shoulders of, that the ERA is one of the most powerful tools that we have to fight all of what harms and subjugates women.
So this is our agenda. First and foremost, we need everyone's help to keep a spotlight on this issue. Until we get to the finish line, recognize that each of us can play a role in making this a reality. There's information available that we've already made available through the coalition. Get involved as far as making it an issue in your community and making it clear that it is important that it get to the finish line. We then will have litigation, but we think we are already at the finish line. So we hope that that litigation will be successful. But a lot depends upon how we frame the issues and keep attention on the issues. And the courts are somewhat insulated from the political world, but they are part of our society. So it's important that we stay engaged and support the lawsuits that are being brought to say, look, 38 states have ratified. That's what the Constitution says. The Equal Rights Amendment should be acknowledged as part of our Constitution. And then the third area of request is that let's get Congress to make that very clear. We can do more than one thing at a time. Let's have Congress clarify the fact that there is no time limit on equality. 38 states have ratified, and we acknowledge that the time limit is not applicable to the Equal Rights Amendment. They're the three paths that we're really following up on. We think each is vitally important. We're going to get to the finish line. I hope it doesn't take 100 years like it did for voting rights or for the other issues. It's been 100 years since we've had voting rights for women, and it's been a long path towards the Equal Rights Amendment. We started the Equal Rights Amendment, I don't know how many years ago, but it was shortly after the campaign for voting rights. So we've been on this path for a long time. It's important that we get it done as quickly as possible. We have an administration that should be friendly on this. I think, Carol, your points are very well taken as to the Biden administration being aggressive in making this a reality. Anything else you all want to add? Carol?
I want to thank you for your leadership, Senator Cardin. You have just been terrific. You and Bill and Helen and Sue in your office, where we bug them a lot, and you all are always extremely helpful and open and working so hard on this. So we thank you so much for the many, many years that you have put into this. We want you to know that the women of America appreciate what you're doing and thank you. And we agree, please don't make us wait until the absolute century mark, which would be 2023. We would love to get this done by 2022, so that we can say we did it before the full century and celebrate that as well as everything else. So just thank you so much for everything that you do.
And to Carol Jenkins, who I've already acknowledged as the president and CEO of the ERA Coalition and the Fund for Women Equality. Carol has announced that she'll be moving on. I just really want you to know I've been involved in so many of the campaigns on gender equity issues and women's rights issues, and Carol has been in the middle of all of those efforts and a real hero to the values of America. So we really want to salute your incredible leadership on this issue, and we know we're going to continue to work with you as we move forward.
Absolutely.
And to Alyssa, you've been a hero on this, as Carol pointed out. You're a board member, and you have been so actively engaged on this issue. We thank you for using your talent to help others and to help our nation. So thank you for all of your work on behalf of equal rights for women and on behalf of American values. We appreciate it. You get the last word.
Well, I also want to second what you've said about Carol, who has been such an incredible pioneer in this movement as far as leading from a place of service and grace. And it's just been such a delight to grow in your light. So thank you for all you've given me. And Senator, thank you for being an incredible ally. Truly, we know that with you, we have a true ally, and that you're with us every step of the way, and we really appreciate it. Equality is for everyone, and there is no time limit on equality.
Amen to that. Thank you both for joining us, and thank you all for joining us on Facebook Live. We hope to have another session on this soon when we can celebrate the Equal Rights Amendment being part of our United States Constitution. Everybody stay well.